When you need a dose of humility, read Job chapters 38, 39, 40, and 41. In this very thorough heart examination, God asks Job a sobering question. Wilt thou condemn me, that thou mayest be righteous? It'd be a very productive process for all of us if in our times of difficulty and struggle, we were to answer that same question of ourselves. Am I willing to condemn God so that I can be righteous? Sometimes good people don't even realize they're condemning God. I don't know why this happened to me. I just know it couldn't possibly be my fault. That was essentially what Job himself had concluded. And that's why God asked Job, wilt thou condemn me, that thou mayest be righteous? Are you willing to belittle God in order to magnify yourself? Cain faced that test, and he failed. Cain and his brother Abel each offered a sacrifice to God as they had learned from their father Adam. God accepted Abel's offering, but he rejected Cain's. Cain grew jealous of Abel and bitter at God, essentially accusing God of playing favorites. Eventually, Cain's bitterness drove him to kill Abel. God came to Cain to ask him about Abel, and Cain responded with the first sarcasm in the Bible. Am I my brother's keeper? Instead of showing shame for his crime, Cain chose to show disrespect to his creator. Cain faced the test of, wilt thou condemn me that thou mayest be righteous? And he failed. What is the ultimate absolute in your life? God's righteousness or your own righteousness? Abraham faced this test, and he passed. Abraham had already proven for all time that he believed God. Yet, when God asked Abraham to take his only son Isaac and offer him to God as a sacrifice, without hesitation, Abraham obeyed God's instructions until God at the last minute stepped in and provided a substitute for Isaac. Abraham faced the test of, wilt thou condemn me that thou mayest be righteous? And he passed. Are you willing to let people see God as less than perfect so they won't see you as less than perfect? The 12 spies faced this test. 10 failed and 2 passed. Moses sent 12 men into the promised land to find out how things looked. 10 came back and essentially said, God doesn't know what he's doing. 2 spies, Joshua and Caleb, came back and said, God is going to do what he said he would do. They all faced the test of, wilt thou condemn me that thou mayest be righteous? Joshua and Caleb passed. The other 10 failed. Are you willing to let God be your scapegoat? Joseph faced this test, and he passed. Joseph had experienced a series of injustices that took him a world away from the dreams of his youth. Joseph would have seemed fully justified to blame God for his misfortune and embrace the gods and the lifestyle of Egypt. Instead, Joseph clung to his faith and trusted God's providence. Because he did, he was in the position to bring healing and provision to his entire family, and to be used of God to help transform Israel from a large family to a small nation. Joseph faced the test of, wilt thou condemn me that thou mayest be righteous? And he passed. Are you so willing to declare yourself right that you're willing to strip God of his righteousness? King Saul faced that test, and he failed. Saul had overstepped the boundaries of his office when he offered a sacrifice in Samuel's absence. When Samuel challenged him on his actions, Saul, rather than take responsibility for his actions, justified his violation of God's principles, as if to say, there's a time when God's principles aren't good enough. King Saul faced the test of, wilt thou condemn me that thou mayest be righteous? And he failed. When the assessment of your situation brings you down to only 2 possible culprits, you or God, will you charge God in order to let yourself go free? Hannah faced that test, and she passed. Hannah had been mocked and insulted for years because she was unable to have children. Her rivals slighted her every day. She could have gone to God and said, this is your fault. You're the one who's made me miserable. But she didn't. She went humbly to God and asked him to consider her plight. She told God that if he would give her a son, she would give that son back to him. God heard Hannah's plea and gave her Samuel. Hannah faced the test of, wilt thou condemn me that thou mayest be righteous? And she passed with high honors. Wilt thou condemn me that thou mayest be righteous? Are you willing to belittle God in order to magnify yourself? What is the ultimate absolute in your life? God's righteousness or your own righteousness? Are you willing to let people see God as less than perfect so that they won't see you as less than perfect? Are you willing to let God be your scapegoat? Are you so willing to declare yourself right that you're willing to strip God of his righteousness? When the assessment of your situation brings you down to only two possible culprits, you or God, will you charge God in order to let yourself go free? Wilt thou condemn me that thou mayest be righteous? Christian, difficulties and struggles will reveal the condition of your heart towards God. Stay the course.